everyone. Welcome to the very first long-form YouTube video of Immigration with Barbara. I'm Barbara. I'm a licensed immigration consultant. I've been working in the immigration field for over 9 years, and I have so much knowledge I just want to share with you guys. You may know me from TikTok. I'm primarily do short form, but here I go long form. I'm just winging it a little bit today, so we shall see how she goes, and I'm just diving right in. What I want to share with you today is going to be on the topic of spousal sponsorship. It's almost like a piece of the consultation that I typically have with all my couples who are thinking about spousal sponsorship. If you're like, Barbara, what is spousal sponsorship? Spousal sponsorship, in a nutshell, is when a Canadian or permanent resident wants to sponsor their spouse for permanent residence in Canada. A legal spouse is married or common law. Common law under immigration law in Canada is 1 year of cohabitation. The least sexy thing ever. Cohabitation. Basically living together, creating a household together, and of course being in an actual genuine relationship. So today, again, just going for it and diving right in. I'm going to share the document checklist for spousal sponsorship and literally tell you exactly what I tell some of my couples who I meet with. So an extremely common question people have is, do I have enough documentation? How do I prove the relationship is genuine? Like, what do I need to give, and is it enough? So we're going to explore those questions right now together. So this is the document checklist. I'm using the one for common law. There is a separate one for married couples. It's the spouse one. It's very similar though. So again, we're going into the genuineness documentation, how to prove the relationship. Of course, common law, you have a bit more, you're leaning a bit more towards, of course, you have to prove that cohabitation period, the 12 months continuous, no breaks. Versus married, there's not necessarily any minimum cohabitation that needs to be proven, but there's always an element of, is this relationship genuine? Does it have a beginning, a middle, and a future? So explaining all of that. Now, this checklist is going to be your kind of gold standard. It's going to help you so much throughout the process, and you actually have to submit this checklist with your full application. So it's huge, it's massive. If you just go line by line, not everything is going to be required for everyone. So some of these are just like not applicable. So you just sort of move forward. You do need to fill out every single area with either a check mark or state that it's not applicable to your situation. On the bottom left corner of every immigration form or document checklist, there is a date. So this form, IMM 5589, the last time it was updated was September 2022. I downloaded it today, July 10th, 2025. This is the most up-to-date version. But know that no matter when you are going to apply for spousal sponsorship, you do need to make sure you have the most fresh version of your forms and document checklist. If it is expired or old, that is a reason for rejection. So you could have the application returned to you or be deemed they won't process it. So be mindful of that. If it's taken you 6-7 months to work out all the forms and documentation, you might want to go on the government website. Well, you definitely want to go on the government website and re-download them and just make sure the bottom left corner date matches what you have. And if there's a fresher version, you got to redo the fresher version. Okay, 10 pages of this. But again, we are going to focus on the proof of relationship documentation. Okay, so the questions, what do they want and how do I know when I have enough? So there's a bare minimum and then there's above and beyond when it comes to this. So here we go, proof of relationship. You must provide the following documentation as proof of current cohabitation if you are currently living with your common law partner. Pick at least 2 of the following sets. So again, we only need 2 of the following list, more the better though. All right, proof of joint ownership of residential property. Not everyone has this, of course. Not everyone owns property to begin with. So this is very, very niche. If you have it, excellent. Click it and of course provide the proof. But if not, So if you don't have that, often people will have this, a rental agreement showing both you and your sponsor as occupants of the rental property. So again, demonstrating that cohabitation period of a minimum of 12 months, no gaps. Now, the no gaps just means that there was no period where you were living apart, but you can have, lived in multiple places and even multiple countries. So if you live 6 months in the States, maybe with your parents and your partner, your parents could write a letter confirming that you had 6 months with them, and then you moved to Vancouver. Your partner got a job in Vancouver, so you moved there on work permit. And then you had 6 months there on a lease agreement, or maybe a 1-year lease agreement in Vancouver. So you can compound different locations, different countries. It just has to be continuous. All right, so everyone will either have this or this. You know what I mean? Like you lived somewhere, you have some sort of proof that you live there. If you don't have an official lease agreement, there's other things. You could get like a letter from the superintendent. I've done letters from landlords, letters from roommates. I would get them maybe notarized. So there are some brainstorming options here if you don't have a typical lease agreement, whether that be the country you were living in just simply didn't have them, or a lot of people in Canada also don't have lease agreements. Sometimes they like literally meet their roommate or landlord on Craigslist, which is sketchy. Be careful if you're doing that, but get something. You know what I mean? Now, proof of joint utility accounts, joint credit card accounts, joint bank account, something joint bills. So I love telling my couples that every month when you go and pay all your bills, make a list of them and see if any of them have the option to add a secondary user or a spouse. Some things like insurance might have marital status options. So once you hit common law, you can, hey, I have a common law partner, and update your marital status, add your partner on the insurance, things like that. But just think about everything. Yeah, some couples don't have this because they split things. They go, okay, they do the electricity, I do the gas bill, and we each have our own cell phones or something like that. And it's like, well, just try like if you don't have it, you don't have it. But this one is usually a pretty simple one that most couples have in some shape or form, or you can go open up a joint bank account. Most banks will allow that. Sometimes there's not even a fee. Shop around, because I would just go with a bank who doesn't have a fee. Or joint credit cards, or again, secondary user on a joint credit card. And then again, providing those statements. Does a statement say your address, and does it have both of your names on it? So very common, highly recommend. Vehicle insurance. So again, this would only apply if you actually have a vehicle and have vehicle insurance. It'll depend on the place where you live. In British Columbia, they're always changing the rules, but the last time I went in, the rule was anyone in your house that's living with you that may use your vehicle must be listed on your vehicle insurance. So it's like, okay, well, I had to list all my roommates on there and my boyfriend or my girlfriend at the time, and so we already have that documentation to and then of course, once you're common law, you can just show that document. It shows that you both live there and that you are both listed on the vehicle insurance. But again, this isn't everyone. Some people don't even have a vehicle. Copies of government issued documents for you and your sponsor showing the same address. So the easiest thing, like if you're both in Canada and you're on a work permit, of course your partner is Canadian, and you both have a driver's license or other government issued ID. I know BC also does like a provincial government ID that looks really similar to a driver's license, but you don't need an actual driver's license. Just something more official showing. So again, not everyone will have it. It's okay not to have it, but if you do, it's a wonderful piece of documentation. Lastly, everyone should have this for sure. So other documents issued to you and your sponsor showing the same address, whether the accounts are held jointly or not. So again, comes down to what bills do you pay every month. They are going to have your address, they're going to have your name, so you're paying them separately, but they're still showing the same address. And then everything else separate, like pay stubs, T4s, notice of assessment, your own credit card statement, your own insurance, anything else separate. I've had people get creative and take a picture of Amazon packages that show up to the house all throughout the year. because sometimes they're like dated and have an address, or the photo can get date stamped and all of that. So it just again shows that you have been living there and you've both been living there for that minimum 1 year duration. So there it is. There's that minimum of 2 check boxes in total here. More the better though. And again, most people should have probably at least these 3 or some semblance of at least 3. If you have all of them, don't think like, oh, I just need 2, I'll just do 2. Give all of them, give all of them. And again, you can go above and beyond as well. If you have a few of these documentations, but you're like, oh, but I also have some other like ideas and things I can add to it, like the Amazon package, for example, feel free. Like it's a more is better situation when it comes to spousal sponsorship. So this is it. This is what 95% of my couples, when we're chatting, we go over this and we are brainstorming every possible document we can put into this. Again, there is a minimum, but we want to go above and beyond. There is this option here as well. If you're unable to provide 2, you want to instead provide a detailed explanation, why not, and other evidence of cohabitation. It's an option there. I honestly, in my career, I've never had to use it. We've always been able to brainstorm and work together to pull and scrape together some documentation so that we fit at least that minimum level. If you're not living together for any reason, there is alternate documentation. This could be if someone, perhaps is away for military, work, study, family emergency, taking care of an elderly relative or something like that. There's situations that do arise where you did have a period of cohabitation and now for one of those significant reasons, you're no longer living together. So they do offer that as well as an option if that's appropriate for your situation. The next checklist I want to go through, skip these questions, they're case specific, is here. And once again, it's 2 out of the full list. So it's another area where people go, oh, okay, I just need 2. Quite frankly, most people only have 2 in this area. It's a little bit more niche. So the first point, important documents for you and your spouse showing that you are recognized as each other's spouse. Most commonly, people have perhaps insurance through their work and are able to name a partner through there. Not everyone has that though. Not everyone has, the insurance through work, for example. So this one is, if you have it, you have it. It's not always the case though. I'd say more often than not, it's not the case. So then we go here, documentary evidence of financial support between you and your sponsor or shared expenses. So there's a bit of an overlap here between this and the joint accounts. If you have joint accounts, it's pretty simple to show that you have shared expenses because you both are contributing, depositing, withdrawing, all that good stuff. Now, if you don't have joint accounts though, but you share your finances in some other way, showing proof of that. So perhaps one person pays rent, the other person e-transfers or Venmos 50% of the rent over, and you have documentation to prove that that went on for, the year or 2 years, 3 years, however long you've been together or renting in that space. Some couples do things differently. They go, okay, when we go on vacation, I get the flight, they get the Airbnb. You know what I mean? So they've got evidence, those receipts, the documentation to show that this is how we split the holiday together. And then sometimes that one partner is a homemaker as well, that they are providing, kind of more of a homemaker role in the relationship. And there is one primary sort of income generating human in the relationship, and that is perfectly fine as well. So just explaining it and showing how that support takes place and documenting it as well. Now, this second one, I highly recommend. I would never submit one without being able to click this box. Other proof that your relationship is recognized by your friends or family. So the reason I would never submit without this is because it forms part of the definition of a genuine relationship, that people outside of your relationship know you are in a relationship. This doesn't mean you're like a PDA couple. It's not that. It's just that, can you provide some sort of proof? If you have a social media presence, you can provide screenshots of that. Not mandatory whatsoever, so don't freak out or open up an Instagram right now or something if you're not social or PDA on social media, that's totally fine. It will not work against you. Letters from friends and family, though, again, I would never ever submit without substantial letters from friends and family. I would do a few from each side, just demonstrating that they know the relationship exists. How do they know you? How did they meet the other partner? Like if they're, the sibling of the Canadian, when did they meet the spouse, the common law partner that's being sponsored? And what are their kind of thoughts and feelings to the relationship? What's their relationship to the relationship? And all those great things. So yeah, those form an incredible piece of the overall spousal sponsorship application. So again, never submit without, and make sure they're very thorough, extensive, and I will get ideally several, but it's also a quality versus quantity kind of thing. The more, robust and emotional letters are going to create a bigger impact. Now, this one, again, not apply to everyone. If you are one of those couples who are currently not living together for a significant reason, but do have that past cohabitation of at least a year, you can do this proof of past cohabitation and click this one. But again, this one doesn't apply to everyone. This one doesn't apply to everyone. So, and again, we want at least 2. So I would always do these 2 boxes. It does give you the option. If you can't do 2, you can explain. I've never done this in my career, but of course, every relationship is unique. Some people may need to click that, but I'm always able to kind of brainstorm. It's literally a creativity activity, what kind of documentation you can provide. So that was that. And I hope that was helpful. Again, this is very common what I do with my clients in a one-on-one consultation. But of course, we go through everything and anything that they would like. And it's all about meeting the minimum, but going above and beyond that. It's like, okay, take it to the next level, particularly in this environment where there is a big demand for spousal sponsorship. We're seeing the number of applications start to balloon a little bit, and we are getting the messaging from IRCC. They are being a little bit more intensive in their assessment of a genuine relationship. So once again, hope that was helpful. You've got this. If you are sponsoring your partner, just put some time together, some time aside to sit down and really go through it. It can feel overwhelming. I used to do these by paper because I've been doing this for so long. So to give a visual, when we did them by paper, it was like this. It's all online now, so it kind of is hard to really wrap your head around how much documentation it is. But yeah, if you were to print it out, it's a thick application, but very doable, very, very, very doable. Again, just putting the time aside where you're not distracted so you can focus on it and start building it piece by piece. Okay, this is it. We did it. First episode done. So yeah, welcome to my channel on YouTube. I'm Barbara, I'm a licensed consultant, and I'm hoping to make a lot more of these to help you DIY your Canadian immigration. I will see you next time.